This is an introduction to a project that's already progressing. It's going to be a dust collection booth. We'll use it for putting powder onto objects to be powder coated. We have to mount a Lazy Susan up here so that the object can be spun. I have to have a place to put the control unit, and I need to run air. Now we have air right here with a sandblaster, so I'm going to put this thing on this side someplace, and I use this to step the 125 shot pressure down to 50, and then this thing steps it down to 20 to 25 for putting the powder on. Powder is inert, so you don't want to breathe it, but it's not toxic. And we just put the dust collection system in, and I'll put a link up there, I think. And all we got to do is draw air into this thing and into the cyclone, and it will separate the dust out, and then we just dispose of it. So the first step is this thing rolls around too easy. So what I'm going to do is make some U-shaped brackets to put on the wheels so that it won't roll around. That's the first project, and we'll bring you along. I went rummaging through my scrap pile and found some pieces where I'd been doing some test welds. Cut that up on the new bandsaw. Bandsaw makes a heck of a noise. I'm going to have to call about that. Sounds like the gearbox is dry. But I got 3 pieces of square tube. I'm only going to do 3 tires or dollies because you only get to 3. I'm going to take 2 pieces of angle. I'm going to put the square tube in the middle of it like that. I just run a bead there and a bead there. And the dolly will sit in here like that. The tire will sit like that. And it can't roll either way. I'll show you when it's on the machine. Time to do some welding. I haven't done any welding in months. So the welder's running, so that's the noise you're hearing in the background. I haven't done any cleanup or anything. I haven't welded in months. So let's see if we can weld something. Okay, not too bad. Got a little hole right there, but to hold a tire on a dolly, that'll be just fine. We have completed the first project. We have a wheel chock, and it slides in there just like that, and it wiggles a little bit. I mean, you get violent here to move, but what I'm going to do, hang a piece here and spray it. This thing is going to be fine. All right, on to the next project. Next project is to line these walls, and we'll talk about that right now. I talked earlier about this dust booth having double walls on it. There's 2 walls. There's an outer wall and an inner wall. There's a double ceiling, a ceiling on the top and a ceiling that goes on the inside. And all that back area is going to be under a low pressure, so it's going to draw air into the cabinet and into the dust collection system. So the first thing we got to do is put the ceiling on here. This is the very top, and it sets into a groove on the top and sets down. Nice. And that creates the outer wall. And now you see this inner structure a little more clearly. Okay, a little more clearly. And the ceiling goes up against that. So there's a gap here, and the air can get in back of it. And in the ceiling are slots. There's slots cut here. And that's going to let the air go through and should draw the dust through. Now this is the ceiling the dust doesn't go towards the ceiling, it wants to go towards the floor, but we want to create a general flow into the cabinet, so I have put slots into the ceiling that goes inside the cabinet. So now we're going to try to put this ceiling inside. Which is a pretty good fit. Now we have the ceiling in place with the slots cut. We'll put the ceiling, the top back on. That creates the cavity for the air to go through. And it magically falls into place. And now we have a ceiling that should draw dust up. What we really want is to draw the dust that way. So the floor has many more slots in it, and these corners will have many more slots in it. And I'll show you cutting those slots. All right. I thought I'd let you know how I create these slots. I've laid them out on the back side. They're at 45 degrees. I've promised to calculate how much open space these slots have actually created. It's far greater than what you would think. I know there's friction of air going through, so hopefully it all evens out. I've never done this, so this is a big experiment. I think it'll be okay. I'm putting more slots in the corner where the dust is going to tend to collect. And less slots as you go further out because you're directing it into that corner. Hopefully that creates a better suction area. And I've just run out the lines, and then what I do is I take the circular saw, plunge it in, back it up, shut the saw off, then come back up to the curve and then cut from there forward. If you try to bring the saw forward with a blade running, you have to be really exact not to get a double cut. I'm trying to keep the cuts all the same. So I stop the saw and then I cut. Here we go. When you draw backward on a circular saw, it's not a probably approved way of using a circular saw, but it wants to bite into. The blade is going this way, the teeth are going this way, so it wants to go back. So you have to control it. You don't want it to run back. That's one problem with a radial arm saw, is when you bring the saw blade out, the saw is turning like this, and it wants to come with you. That's a real drawback to those radial arm saws, I think. I don't know what maybe they don't do it the other way because all the sawdust would come out in your face. But I think a radial arm saw would actually be better if the teeth cut towards you so you could cut pull it into the cut rather than have it run into the cut. Okay, I'll finish this up and then we'll put some walls up. And the walls are done. Now we have to talk about lighting. This light was put in here temporarily just to give me light, but I did cut the wall to fit. It's LED. We're going to put one there. We're going to put one up here, and we'll put one over here. I'll put the faceplate on and we'll hide the light, so only light goes in. They're LED. Gives you a nice diffused light. Should work out good. On to the electrical, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Lighting. I'm going to have one LED strip here, one LED strip here, one LED strip here. This faceplate that goes on here will cover this one. This faceplate will cover this one. And this one can go inside this cavity. I don't want to have to plug this in each time, so I'm going to put a switch right here.
Oh, I'm really tired of this weather. It can get to be spring any time. Let's go back inside and do some work.
So this is the last end of the extension cord, which I've run down and out the back. If I plug this in, I have lights. Why do I have lights? I got the switch in upside down. How about that? I'm gonna have to turn that around. This one is correct though, see? I gotta turn the switch around, no big deal. And then we'll move forward. We'll get these lights mounted, and now we're gonna move on to the Lazy Susan that's gonna be in the top of this box. We're with it. This is what it looks like assembled. We've got a bolt in here. And a handle welded to that. It spins nicely. We can put a mounting plate on it. Remember, this is hanging from the ceiling. We put the bolt on, we can hold onto this and tighten that bolt. And we can use the handle to turn the Lazy Susan. This hangs from the ceiling like that. And as you can see, it rotates nicely and will handle a lot of weight. This we'll put on the floor. We'll actually probably use this plate, and that'll give me a nice big plate to set stuff on. So we'll have a Lazy Susan to hang from, we'll have a Lazy Susan to sit on. Next step is to put it in the powder coat booth. Time to install the Lazy Susan. Here's an opportunity for me to show you once again this double wall construction. This is the ceiling of the booth. You've seen me take the top off this many times. That creates a cavity. There's ducts here. So I don't think I'll have much come up this way, so I didn't really give it a lot of ducts. It's all down in that corner. Anyway, time to put this Lazy Susan in. The first bolt's the hardest. Okay. I think there'll be no problem for this thing to support the weight. Okay. Now, since this Lazy Susan is all metal, I can use this as my ground point. So I'm going to run a ground wire from one of these studs over to here, into this compartment here, which doesn't have any air in it at all, up through the roof, and then back across the ceiling here, and it'll connect into the control unit. But let me get to that point. Okay. What you see here is the Lazy Susan bolted up. Ground wire going to one of the mount bolts to the Lazy Susan, so that whole thing is grounded. I put in a stud in the ceiling so I could run a clip lead from that stud to anything I wanted to powder coat. And then that wire goes in here and comes out here. This part is not covered, no air goes through here. This whole thing gets sealed, and that's where we're at. We are at a point where we're going to put the top on and screw it on. Okay, don't know that it's airtight, but it's probably pretty tight. Let's see, what's left? We got to put a faceplate on here to hide that. We got to put this light back in that corner. We got to mount the control unit. We got to mount the bulk powder dispenser. We got to find a hanger for the powder coater gun. And we're going to have to figure out how we're going to hang things from that. Okay, I think we have the system back. We have a sandblast cabinet, a dust collection booth, and an oven. I think we'll put the system to test. We'll powder coat the wheel chock. These wheel chocks have worked out very well in holding the booth stationary in the construction process. And so now let's start sandblasting. Okay, ready for powder coat. Let's talk about the dust collection booth. On the top up there we have the powder coat controller. And I do have to put some plates on these outlets. Here we have shop air going to the controller. And I intercept it before it gets to the controller and reduce it. And then I get to the controller and I can reduce it again depending upon what kind of powder I'm using, and I also can control the voltage. Let's take a look at the top. So up here we have, coming up this access port here, the controls from the gun, the air to the batch feeder, the ground that you saw me connect up earlier, and the power cord. Shop air comes into a regulator, and this is not just a valve, this is a true regulator. So with no air going through it, it's still sitting at the design pressure. And then that goes into the controller here, and we can control pressure again, finite control. So let's try putting some powder on and see if this dust boot actually collects the dust. So here's the piece that we just sandblasted. And by hanging it on this piece of metal, it's going to be grounded all the way up through, because you saw me hook up the ground. And let's see if we can put some powder on this. know if you see this, but see the red? It's the powder being drawn into the booth. Nothing came out, nothing on the floor, nothing on me. I would say that's a success. Here's the floor. So all the powder stayed in the booth. Outstanding. So let's take it, put it in the oven, and see if it came out. That oven is at 416 degrees. What you have to do is bring the part up to temperature. So I let it cure for 45 minutes, and then we'll take a look at it. Let's take a look. I think we have a success.